Okay, looking at Genesis chapter 14, we have a couple of interesting segments. We actually have a 3-act chapter, so we have three scenes. We have the main political scene of the day, the 5 kings against the 4 kings, the attack into the valley where Lot lives, and Lot is kind of swept up in this move of political prisoners, war prisoners. Lot's entire family and household is taken captive. Abraham responds. Abraham responds there in the middle of the chapter like he's going to go get him. So Abraham rallies the household that he has, all of the men, 370 some men. They gather together and they go marching north. They're going 175 miles north up into the mountains of what we know as northern Israel, the territory of Dan later on. And in the mountains, Abram surprise attacks these conquering kings. He vanquishes them, recovers everything without a loss, and they're all marching back home into the plains there where Lot had settled. And Abram's able to restore all those things. One nugget in there, it's interesting to see in verse 10, that the whole valley of Siddim is full of asphalt pits. So this bubbling crude oil, full of it all over this valley, which is interesting. That later becomes a topic of discussion with Middle Eastern oil, and where does that all come from? Well, it's been there for thousands of years, apparently. So Abram vanquishes these guys, sets Lot and everybody free, and then they're on their way back south. And then we're introduced to this character named Melchizedek in verse 18. Melchizedek is a mysterious character in the Bible. He's only mentioned a handful of times. He's named the King of Salem. His origin, some people think he's a pre-incarnate Christophany, an appearance of Christ before he's in human form. In fact, Abram bows down and pays tithe to him and honors him. And Melchizedek announces a blessing to Abram in this. Blessed be Abram, God of the God Most High, possessor of heaven and earth, and blessed be the God Most High, who has delivered your enemies into your hand. And then Abram gave him a tithe of all, a tenth. So of all the gain, all of the wealth that they captured from the attack, Abram tithed it to this Melchizedek. Now, the lesser to the greater. So in some respect, as the king of Salem, which is later Jerusalem, Abram is deferring to this Melchizedek, and it's a character worth studying, worth diving into in future personal time. But Abram kind of sets everybody free, and all of the people come back rejoicing. Abram acknowledges that God helped him to the king of Sodom in an elemental form of evangelism, you might say. So that's chapter 14 in a nutshell. It is interesting, and we're kind of leading up to something going into 15. But God promised Abram to bless all the families of the earth in chapter 12. He did the same thing about the land he was going to inherit in chapter 13. And here there's another element of that from Melchizedek in chapter 14. And when we get to chapter 15, we're going to see Abram struggling with doubt, even though God's repeated the same blessing throughout. So we'll take a look at chapter 15 next. I hope you enjoy chapter 14, diving into it and seeing some of the context of the sweeping role of Abram's life of faith.